over to Europe we go now for a reaction, a viewpoint as to what's been taking place over the last couple of days, because certainly, as far as Europe is concerned, it's been a very busy week between the EU summit and also the NATO meeting. And we'll get into a little bit of everything as far as that's involved. Joining us now from Switzerland is our Swiss correspondent, our European correspondent, if you will, and that's Christian Falk. And Christian, good morning to you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's start off with the EU summit and all of the trade possibilities. Canada and the EU signing agreements to open up a number of trade routes, and they cover everything from defense and security through to artificial intelligence and everything in between. What sort of reaction are you seeing and hearing, and how you feel about what's been discussed up to this point as far as this new agreement is concerned?
Very pleased reactions here from the European Union. The meeting between Carney and Ursula von der Leyen, the lead of the European Commission, came right prior to the start of the NATO in Den Haag. It set somehow a sign also directly towards the US. And the way both welcomed each other was significant in terms of friendship and deep partnership, which was not there ever before.
It really does seem to be very much a message as well, especially the European Union, and sending a message to the US like, we're done, we're looking at new opportunities, and we're moving on. Is that what you're sensing? And certainly our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has been looking for new opportunities because he does not want to be so reliant on the US for trade again. So is that what you're sensing from your perspective as well?
It was a direct hint to the US, but we're not sure if the US is smart enough to realize that reaction we were giving to them, Like the way von der Leyen and Carney were talking was in a way which just showed like the deep partnership Canada and the European Union now targeting, not only in terms of defense, but also in trade, economy, like we're really building up a new alliance in here, like we were talking not only about like the program, the European Safe program, which is funded with $150 billion just to enlarge in the military here, and they just invited Canada to be part of it. And in return, Canada was also mentioning that they could give access to the European Union on strategic minerals, but also specifically in terms of LNG, which shows no trade flows now between the European Union and Canada. But as you said, like right in the beginning, the tone, like when von der Leyen started the discussion, like really showing the deep partnership between Canada and Europe, Germany especially, was very nice to hear, and was actually a sign to the world that there's a new alliance and that we don't want to be reliant on the USA anymore.
Well, certainly from a security standpoint, defense standpoint, we are re-examining, for example, the purchase of the F-35 fighter jets from the U.S. We're looking at, perhaps new submarines. I know Germany, I believe, is pitching new submarines. And, the door is open as far as defense spending because, we've committed to meet our 2% goal by the end of this fiscal year. And now yesterday, the NATO countries agreed to increase it to 5% of GDP by 2035. So there's a lot of money on the table right now for defense spending in both ways.
And we clearly invited and gave access now to Canada to the Europe Safe Procurement Fund, which is, as you said, funded with 150 billion US, and Canada is now part of it. So yeah, like it was a statement before actually Trump and the NATO arrived, and it was a clear statement to them that we're now going other ways. Yeah, and it took a little bit of leverage now also from the US. Let's put it like that.
And that was actually one of my next questions was, what does this mean as far as the US's influence on Europe going forward?
I mean, when you looked at the opening statements of the NATO meeting in Den Haag, like they still try to please and welcome Trump. However, that discussion which von der Leyen and Carney had in advance just set a complete different tone. Like I think Trump was traveling to Den Haag in a complete different mindset, and then he must have had the surprise of his life when he saw like that Europe and Canada are teaming up in such a way. Specifically when we're now talking about the 5% GDP spending on military, but like we're already in it, you know, we're teaming up. We want to be not, we don't want to be reliant on the US anymore. And that's the point we set here.
And that's the other thing of it from a Canadian standpoint as well, because this deal with the F-35 fighter jets, for example, there are a lot of things when you start digging down through that it's almost like we're not really buying them, we're almost leasing them, and we have very little control over a number of things. I believe there's a clause in there where if we want to make some changes to some of the software, for example, we have to get approval from the US before anything can happen. Those kinds of things. And that's like, I don't know, especially given the political climate in the US and the way it's going, and it doesn't show any signs of easing, you know, that to have those kinds of restrictions on how you handle your own security seems to be something that just goes against the grain.
You won't have this issue with German submarines we will deliver.
I know you will, for sure. So where do you see it going from here? We have a lot of this positive talk and agreements signed. Can you see the actual wheel starting to turn fairly quickly here?
Yeah, I mean, we're already in it, you know, like they said, like we give like they have an agreement signed. So like this happened before Trump even could say hello. And I think that set the sign. And this is more interesting for the European Union because it's something Canada is a reliable partner. And it's not only about who has the strongest military and the biggest GDP, but like in terms of trade partners. But here we clearly see like that we have a reliant partner on our side, and this is what counts. And this is what the US lost everywhere. Like when we talk in Europe about the US, everyone is complaining we cannot rely on those guys anymore. They're unpredictable, and this is not what we need specifically in those times where we see the threat from Russia, we see threat from Iran. Like we really need strong partnerships here in Europe and transatlantic partnerships as well. And as I said, like Canada was already present in Latvia, very strong. There was like since like the 2000s, like together with the European Union, they were training. Canada was training so many troops in the Ukraine already. Like they gave a lot of their energy and their money and their how do you say like their sources to the European Union and to our partners here.
All right, now very quickly on the Iran thing, there is a growing level of concern here in Canada, and I'm sure in the US as well. What about in Europe as far as potential retaliation from Iran over what happened on the weekend with the bombing of their nuclear sites? Do you see, is there a growing concern about a higher level of potential terrorist activity in Europe?
It might be, but you need to look into the country. Like Iran itself was a free country until the 70s, 80s, and then it turned into a total, I don't know how to say it in English, totalistic country under the strict regime. And the people in there, they're really like modern Western minded. And like a lot of them are just fed up with the government there. And for them, I think like that the regime would be gone is actually in interest of everyone. It got weakened, and we know like if the US really wants to bring it to an end, they can bring it to an end. What we don't understand here in Europe is the US starts something and then is not bringing to an end, but presenting itself that they're the big peacekeepers there. But if you start something like this, just then bump it into the ground, you know, like, and not just start it, like, and then stop in the middle of it. So yeah, like in terms of terrorist attacks, I mean, we're used to it over the last years here, but like the concerns are not too big at this stage. Yeah.
All right, Christian, thank you for bringing us up to date from the European perspective. Christian Falk is our regular contributor as to what's happening in Europe and how they're seeing what we're doing over here in North America, especially on the Canadian side of the 49th parallel. Thank you, Christian.
Thanks, Gary.